The buzz on the internet has repeatedly warned about canceled presidential elections since September of 2001. That's because they really have plans afoot to do just that. The right has finally come to its senses. After 8 years of Obama nation building, the Democratic Party is now understood to be the Communist Party that it truly is. Not only does everyone know that Obama, the U.S. version of Vladimir Lenin, was a stone-cold Manchurian candidate, Comrade Clinton, the U.S. version of Joseph Stalin, was poised to be his tyrannical successor. The right patiently witnessed how the Obama communists and Clinton cultural Marxists stealthily transformed the United States into the USSA via dictatorial executive orders that were patently unlawful and unconstitutional. This was Comrade Obama's main mission. Once Hillary Clinton was elected in 2016, obviously their plan failed miserably. The pre-planned and highly organized scheme was to slowly morph the United States representative democracy into a full-blown totalitarian dictatorship. And along came Trump. What the covert communists neglected to anticipate was the election of Donald Trump. This little development has thrown their meticulous plans into a tailspin, as well as pushed their perpetrators into a state of extreme desperation. That's exactly what the whole world is witnessing right now. Real chaos, but still being cunningly manipulated from the very peak of the pinnacle of the pyramid of worldly power. The critical point here is that Trump's tweets have exposed the left as hardcore communists who are hell-bent on keeping their Sodom and Gomorrah, that means Los Angeles and San Francisco on the West Coast, and New York City and Washington, D.C. on the East Coast. Not only that, Trump has revealed their strategy to take over every major city and power state like they recently did with first Denver and then the state of Colorado. In point of fact, Rothschild bagman George Soros was selected as the frontman for this communist enterprise fervently formed to collapse the American Republic. His Open Society Foundation and many other NGOs were literally set up to front the many seditious conspiracies and clandestine operations that have been surreptitiously carried out since Obama first ran for office. This is why George Soros himself declared that he would do everything possible to have President Trump removed from office. Trump's tweets have steadily laid bare the quiet insurrection taking place all over the United States, for the only way to successfully fulfill their treasonous goals at this pivotal point is for Soros and company to overthrow the Trump administration. And the 2020 election? The upcoming election is truly the big one. This is a winner-take-all scenario. If the Democrats win, they will lock down the country like Stalin did to the USSR after Lenin first shut it down himself. If the Republicans win, they know in their bones that the Democratic Party must be dissolved. Not the rhinos, but the real GOP conservatives know that the Democrats can never again be allowed to hold power, especially the President of the United States. Given this mutually understood political reality, the 2020 election stakes could not be higher. As the United States goes, so goes the world. That much everyone clearly understands as long as the United States remains the military arm of the New World Order. The critical point here is that everyone is now really out in the open. The Democrats cannot under any circumstances be permitted to control the executive branch for the good of our republic. The Republicans aren't that much better, by the way, but they pose the only countervailing force necessary to prevent a USSA from being established by the socialist liberals and closet communists. And this ongoing purple revolution can only be thwarted by President Trump himself. Therefore, it's now much easier to comprehend the true urgency and gravity of this moment. It doesn't get more serious than the 2020 election, which means that the Democrats will either steal it outright, like they did so many 2018 midterm elections, or they will manipulate a series of events to postpone or cancel the election altogether. Who did not just watch the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, postpone the State of the Union address, a first in U.S. history? These communists now have no bounds in their naked sedition and perfidy. Of course, that's because Nancy Pelosi is really working for a higher power, and she feels like she can act with total impunity against Trump and the American people. There is perhaps no better illustration of this coup in process than the greatest scandal of the third millennium occurring inside the Beltway, known as Mulegate. Deep State agent Robert Mueller has been leading just one prong of a multi-pronged strategy to force President Trump from office. Let's face it, folks, that's exactly what it is. As a seditious special counsel, Mueller has been working full-time for foreign interests to remove President Trump, his family, and his closest supporters with false charges and malicious prosecutions. The recent arrest of longtime political advisor Roger Stone is a perfect example of Mueller's intention to alternatively intimidate and threaten any real supporter of President Trump. It is also the most flagrant depiction of a purely political prosecution in the United States' history. No one has ever seen anything like this before, not even close. The level of in-your-face corruption and institutional criminality throughout the deep state-controlled government is as staggering as it is inconceivable. Everything now points to the great likelihood that Mueller's painstakingly contrived PSYOP is the linchpin for the next phase of the ongoing coup d'etat. By their sins of commission and omission, ye shall know them, and former FBI Director Mueller already proved himself as unusually reliable through his calculated cover-up of the false flag 9/11 terrorist attacks. As a result of this rapidly developing state of affairs, President Trump has only one alternative, and that is to expose Mulegate for what it is. But first, he must release the FISAgate evidence so the American citizens can see the sheer depth and breadth of the criminal conspiracy to overthrow the president. It would also help immeasurably if the citizenry of the United States was aware of the even more insidious CrownGate scandal that is the multi-decade precursor to FISAgate itself. Given the inexorable pace of this uniquely American communist revolution, certain things may take place to stop it, and as soon as possible. George Soros and all of his proven co-conspirators must be arrested and prosecuted post-haste. Military tribunals must be formed to quickly imprison the most dangerous of these traitors and foreign agents, particularly in the United States government. The mainstream media must be shut down and taken over. The FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA must all be reformed so that they serve the American citizens, not the interest of our nations or their enemies. It is obvious that these necessary initiatives can only be taken into context of a declared emergency. That's where the President of the United States has full executive authority to do whatever is required to protect the American Republic from enemies both foreign and domestic.
By the way, one of the top priorities for the radical left is to do absolutely nothing about the looming crisis at our southern border. They don't care about the death, destruction, and devastation caused by our porous open border. They don't care about the thousands of migrants making the perilous journey north. They just want to deny President Trump yet another accomplishment.
I can tell you the Republicans want to have a wall, but the Democrats are told that you can't do that. The Democrats are doing a tremendous disservice to our country. I don't think Nancy has a clue. And I see that when she says walls are immoral. She doesn't know. And I wish she did, because she's hurting this country so badly.
The president says there's a good chance, and based on what we just heard from Congressman Mark Meadows, if they don't come up with something, Congress has not wanted to come up with something since 1986. They don't come up with anything. The president has the right to declare an emergency, correct?
He does, under the National Emergencies Act of 1976. Congress actually delegated unfettered authority and discretion to the president. They can whine all they want, but they're the ones who gave him that power. Once he invokes it, he then turns to another law that Congress passed 6 years after that in 1982, which says specifically he is authorized to undertake military construction projects not otherwise authorized by Congress. So they gave him another tool that he can utilize. Right. They can complain all they want. They can sue. In the end, they have no legal basis to prevail.
Okay, so he doesn't need Congress for this.
He doesn't.
And, you know, I just realized, do you know that there have been 58 national emergencies declared since 1976, I believe the law was passed, but 79 when they first did something. And all of a sudden, the president wants to do this. We've got fentanyl, opioids, we've got human trafficking,
heroin,
sex trafficking.
Humanitarian crisis on top of it.
As well.
If Barack Obama can declare a national emergency with respect to Burundi, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic, this president can certainly declare an emergency with respect to Mexico, because you just identified the acute, imminent crisis. And insofar as drugs is concerned, more than 100 people die a day. It has now doubled over the last decade. This is a serious emergency.